Hello, ladies and gentlemen. There comes a time when words lose their meaning, when explanations feel heavy and conversations turn into noise. That's when silence becomes your strongest response. You were not silent because you had nothing to say. You were silent because you were done repeating yourself to someone who never listened. You chose peace over chaos, self-respect over begging for understanding, and now he wonders, has she moved on? The truth. You didn't move on overnight. You outgrew the pain that kept you stuck. Your silence isn't absence, it's evolution. Because silence doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped chasing what breaks you. It's not about revenge, not about proving a point. It's about choosing your energy wisely. While he tries to read your silence, you're busy rebuilding your strength. While he wonders why you're not reaching out, you're learning that peace is louder than closure. That self-love doesn't need an audience. Let him think you've moved on, because you have, not from him, but from the version of yourself that accepted less than you deserved. Silence is not weakness. It's growth, it's dignity, it's healing without an announcement, and sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is saying nothing at all. You see, silence is not weakness, silence is control. Because when pain hits you deep, so deep it shakes your soul, you reach a moment where words just don't fit anymore. You stop explaining, stop defending, stop justifying your worth to people who already decided they wouldn't see it. You realize that no sentence, no argument, no text at 2 a.m. can fix what's already broken inside someone who never wanted to understand you. That's when silence steps in, not as your escape, but as your evolution. When you've cried enough tears to fill rivers that led nowhere, silence becomes your peace treaty with yourself. It's not about ignoring anyone, it's about protecting your spirit. It's that sacred moment when you whisper, I don't need to fight for what's not meant for me. You walk different. You move different. You no longer seek validation in the same places that bruised your heart, because silence teaches you discipline. It teaches you that real power isn't in how loud you speak, it's in how calm you remain when everything inside you wants to scream. And when you go quiet, oh, they notice. They always notice, because the energy shifts. The person who used to react now reflects. The one who used to chase now chooses. The one who used to beg for peace now becomes the peace. Silence, after pain, it's the loudest form of strength there is. It's not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's the fire that doesn't need smoke to prove it's burning. You don't need to make an announcement when you heal. You just need to show up differently, and your silence will do all the talking for you. You know what's crazy? Silence. It shakes the ones who thought they had control. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, stop arguing, stop showing them that their words still sting, it messes with their mind. They don't know how to process that peace. They start to question everything. Did she stop caring? Did I lose her for good? And the truth is, your silence becomes their mirror. It reflects everything they didn't want to see. When you were talking, they could ignore you. When you were crying, they could walk away. But when you went quiet, now they hear every word you never said. Silence starts to echo. It echoes in their thoughts, in their guilt, in their memories. It follows them when they're alone, when the crowd is gone, when they scroll through old messages just to feel something again. See, people think silence is the end of the story, but silence, that's when the real story begins, because now they have to face the truth they ran from. They have to sit in that stillness and realize you're not available anymore. Not your energy, not your attention, not your forgiveness, and that scares them, because silence means they no longer control the narrative. They can't twist your words, they can't manipulate your emotions. They can't pull you back into the same cycle. You took your voice off the battlefield, and that's when you won the war. That's what silence does. It turns the noise back on them. Every late night thought, every what if, every maybe I went too far. That silence becomes their teacher. And you don't have to lift a finger, you don't have to post a thing, you don't have to prove you're healing, because silence doesn't chase. It attracts reflection, and reflection, that's where regret lives. They start to realize that your quiet wasn't weakness, it was wisdom, that your distance wasn't hate, it was healing, that your peace wasn't revenge, it was recovery. And once they see that, once they finally feel the absence of your presence, that's when silence starts to do the talking, louder than any words ever could. You see, most people confuse silence with surrender. They think when you go quiet, you've given up. But real ones know silence ain't giving up. Silence is gearing up, because it takes a different kind of strength to hold your peace when your heart wants to explode. It takes control, real control, to walk away from what disrespects your soul, and still not let it make you bitter. Anybody can react, anybody can shout, post, clap back, but it takes discipline to stay silent when you could easily destroy someone with the truth. That's emotional maturity. That's what they don't teach you in this loud world, a world where everybody wants to be heard, but nobody wants to understand. Silence is not the absence of emotion, it's the management of it. Because when you've been broken enough times, you learn something important. Peace is not free, it's purchased through restraint. Every time you hold your tongue, you're buying back your calm. Every time you walk away, you're paying for your freedom. And when people see that calm in you, that unshakable calm, it confuses them. They expect the old you. They expect the reactive you. But that version of you doesn't live here anymore. You've trained your emotions. You've learned to master your mind instead of letting your mind master you. You've realized that silence doesn't mean you don't care, it means you care enough about yourself to not let anyone steal your peace again. Because silence, that's discipline in motion. It's you saying, I choose me this time. It's you walking away without hate, without noise, without needing to be right. It's you letting the universe handle what your words no longer can. And when you reach that level where you can smile, stay calm, stay grounded even when the storm's still raging around you, that's not weakness, that's control. That's the kind of discipline that builds empires, that raises kings and queens, that writes legacies. That's the discipline that tells the world, I'm not reacting anymore, because I finally understand my worth. And the moment you reach that understanding, the silence that once felt heavy starts to feel holy. It becomes your shield, your weapon, your healing, because silence, that's not retreat, that's elevation. You know what's funny? When you go quiet, people start making up stories. They start thinking, oh, you must have moved on. But they don't realize silence doesn't always mean it stopped hurting. Sometimes it means you just stopped showing your pain in public. See, people get addicted to your reaction. They feed off your energy, your emotion, your presence. When you used to care out loud, they felt important. When you stopped speaking, their ego lost its oxygen, and now they confuse your peace with distance, your healing with forgetting, but silent. It's not about pretending you don't feel, it's about refusing to feel in the same place you got wounded. They think you moved on because they can't see your process. They don't see the nights you still battle with your thoughts. They don't see the prayers you whisper in the dark. They don't see the strength it takes to stay quiet when every part of you wants to reach out one last time. But silence, it's sacred ground. It's where you rebuild. It's where the noise of the world fades and your soul starts to whisper, I'm okay now. And when you reach that place, when you start choosing silence not out of pain but out of peace, that's when they notice the change. That's when they say you've moved on. But the truth is you didn't move on, you leveled up. You didn't forget, you forgave. You didn't stop caring, you started caring correctly. Because silence doesn't erase love, it just redirects it. It takes all that energy you used to pour into them, and it pours it back into you, into your growth, into your purpose, into your peace. So when they ask, how did you move on so easily? You just smile. Because they'll never understand how hard it was to choose calm over chaos, How long it took to stop explaining your worth to people who were never ready to value it. How many storms you walked through before you realized you didn't need to prove your healing, you just needed to live it. They mistake your silence for moving on, but silence is just the sound of your spirit rising. It's the echo of your boundaries finally being heard. It's the calm before the comeback, because the quiet ones, oh, they're not done. They're just preparing. You ever notice how healing doesn't make a sound? It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't come with validation. It doesn't post updates for the world to see. Healing, it's quiet. It's those long nights when nobody checks on you, but you still get up in the morning. It's those moments when you smile through the ache because you promised yourself, I won't live broken anymore. See, the truth about quiet healing is this: nobody sees it happening, but everybody sees the result. They see your calm, but not your climb. They see your strength, but not the sleepless nights that built it. They see your peace, but not the war you fought to earn it. Quiet healing is a battlefield inside your soul. It's where you confront your own reflection and admit, yeah, I was hurt. Yeah, I was lost, but I'm not staying there. It's the unseen work. The prayers whispered under breath. The forgiveness you give without an apology, the peace you build from pieces no one else believed could fit again. And that's the thing about quiet healing. It's not glamorous, it's not for show, it's for growth, because you learn that real healing doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need claps, comments, or closure. It needs courage. Courage to sit with your pain and not run from it. Courage to face your fears and say, you don't own me anymore. Courage to accept that some people won't understand your silence, but you didn't heal for them, you healed for you. And when that healing starts to settle in, when that peace begins to bloom quietly inside you, you start to glow different. You walk different, you think clearer, you speak softer but stronger, because healing, it humbles you. It teaches you patience, empathy, and strength you never knew you had. They may think you've forgotten, but you haven't forgotten, you've just transformed. The pain that once tried to break you. It built you, the silence that once scared you. It saved you, because the truth behind quiet healing is that it's not about pretending you were never hurt, it's about learning to live without letting the hurt define you. It's not about forgetting who broke you, it's about remembering who you became after you fixed yourself. And once you taste that kind of peace, that private, quiet, sacred peace, you stop needing the world to understand you. You stop explaining your journey, you just live it. You just breathe it. You just become it. You ever notice how quiet people make the most noise without saying a word? That's because silence, real silence, speaks from a place words can't reach. See, confrontation, that's easy. Anybody can shout, can argue, can try to prove a point. But silence, that's power under control. That's a storm choosing not to destroy. That's a lion walking away when it could roar. When you've grown enough, you start to realize you don't need to fight to be understood. You don't need to argue to be right. You don't need to shout to be heard, because silence doesn't seek validation, it demands respect. When you go quiet after being mistreated, after being doubted, after being pushed, your silence becomes their lesson. It makes them face themselves. It forces them to hear the echoes of their own actions. And here's the thing, silence ain't passive. It's not weakness, it's awareness. It's you saying, I know what I could say, but I also know it's not worth my peace. You see, confrontation drains energy. It feeds the fire of ego. It turns healing into competition. But silence cuts deeper than any argument ever could. Because when you remove your energy from a situation, that's when the truth gets exposed. When you stop responding, they start reflecting. When you stop proving, they start realizing. When you stop showing up to defend your worth, that's when they finally see it. And sometimes, silence is the only language people truly understand. It's the pause that makes them replay every moment. It's the quiet that makes them question what went wrong. It's the absence that turns into awareness, because your silence doesn't say, "I don't care." It says, "I've said enough." It says, "I'm not lowering myself to be heard by someone who's not listening." It says, "I'm done talking about peace, I'm living it." So let them wonder, let them talk, let them fill the air with noise. Because while they're speaking from emotion, you're moving from wisdom. And wisdom doesn't shout, it simply exists, unbothered, grounded, still. That's the secret they'll never understand. You don't need to raise your voice when your silence already carries authority. You don't need to explain your decision when your peace already proves it. Because silence has its own gravity. It pulls truth out of people. It reveals character. It ends battles without throwing a punch. It exposes lies without saying a word. And when you master that, when you can walk away with calm instead of chaos, with silence instead of shade, you become untouchable. Because silence, it's not the sound of giving up. It's the sound of leveling up. Let me tell you something. Walking away don't make you weak. It makes you wise, because there's a price that comes with peace. It costs the argument you could have won. It costs the last word that would have felt so good to say. It costs the applause from people who wanted to see you explode. But you learn. Some victories ain't worth your soul. You see, dignity, it's expensive. You pay for it with silence when you could have shouted. You pay for it with distance when you could have stayed and fought. You pay for it with the nights you sit alone, replaying everything you didn't say. And still, you hold your head high, because you know every time you walk away instead of breaking down, you're building yourself back up. Walking away with dignity means you stop asking people to see your value. You stop trying to convince them you were real. You start protecting what's left of your spirit. That's the cost. That's the tax for choosing peace in a world that profits off pain. And yeah, it hurts. It hurts to let go without closure. It hurts to stay silent when every part of you wants to scream, "Look what you did to me." But you don't. You breathe, you pray, you rise, because you understand revenge might satisfy the moment, but dignity feeds the soul. You can feel it in your chest. The war between pride and peace. Pride says, "Go back, make them see." Peace says, "Keep moving, let them be." And when you choose peace, that's the day you graduate from reaction to reflection. They may call it pride, they may call it ego, but it's not that. It's self-respect. It's knowing that your silence holds more weight than their noise. It's realizing that sometimes the strongest statement you can make is to simply walk away without saying a word. Because when you walk away with dignity, you're not losing them, you're saving you. You're saying, "I still got love, but I love me more." You're saying, "I still feel pain, but I won't live there anymore." You're saying, "I don't need to destroy you to heal me." And that decision, it costs you. It costs time. It costs comfort. It costs people who won't understand your silence. But the reward is peace so deep, it doesn't need defending. Peace that lets you sleep at night. Peace that reminds you you didn't lose your temper, you found your balance. That's what walking away with dignity really is. It's self-control wrapped in grace. It's strength disguised as stillness. It's the quiet victory that nobody claps for but heaven notices. Because sometimes the loudest roar you'll ever make is the sound of your footsteps leaving the fire without looking back. You know what really shakes a person. It's not when you yell. It's not when you cry. It's not when you try to make them understand. It's when you stop reacting. Because reaction, that's energy. And when you stop giving it, they start to feel the emptiness of their own actions. You used to feed their ego with attention. Every text back, every argument, every tear, it all told them they still had power. But when you stopped responding, when you stopped letting their chaos pull you in, something shifted. Now they feel the silence they created. See, People only realize what you brought to their life once your energy is gone. It's not your absence that hurts them, it's the reflection that comes with it. Because when you stop reacting, they're forced to sit alone with the echo of their own behavior. And that echo, it's loud, it doesn't go away. It follows them into their quiet moments, their sleep, their thoughts. At first, they think it's peace, they think they've won, they think finally it's quiet. But that quiet starts to talk. That quiet starts to remind them of everything they took for granted. Every good morning you gave, every bit of patience you offered, every moment you chose understanding over pride. That's when realization starts creeping in, slow, heavy, undeniable. They start to see the truth. You were never the problem. You were the peace. You were the calm they confused for weakness. You were the loyalty they mistook for comfort. When you stop reacting, they start to replay the moments the way you stood by them, the way you forgave, the way you still showed love when they gave you reasons not to. And the silence starts to feel heavier, colder, because now the conversation isn't between you and them anymore, it's between them and their conscience. See, that's the thing about silence, it doesn't punish, it reveals. It turns their arrogance into awareness. It turns their pride into pain. It turns their "she'll always be there" into "she's really gone." And when they realize that you're not reacting anymore, not because you're angry, not because you're trying to make a point, but because you've outgrown the situation, that's when the lesson lands. That's when the same silence they once laughed at becomes the sound of their own regret. You see, when you stop reacting, you stop feeding the fire, and without fuel, the flames die out. You don't have to block them, you don't have to curse them. You just don't engage because your peace is no longer for sale. And that's what they realize, eventually, that the real loss wasn't your words, it was your energy. It was your presence. It was your light. And by the time they understand it, you're already gone. Already evolved. Already living in that silence that once scared them but now protects you. Because that's what happens when you stop reacting. They finally start listening, not to you, but to the voice of their own conscience, and that, my friend, is a sound they can't silence. You reach a point in life where you stop performing for people. You stop trying to prove that you're good enough, kind enough, loyal enough, because you realize the ones who can't see your worth when you're right in front of them won't see it no matter how loud you try to show it. See, healing, real healing, ain't about convincing anybody that you've changed. It's about changing quietly and letting peace become your testimony. You don't announce it. You don't post it. You live it. Because when you heal without trying to prove your worth, you finally break the chain that kept you chasing validation. You start to understand something deep. The people who broke you can't be the ones to confirm your value. That was never their job. Their rejection wasn't a reflection of your worth. It was an invitation to meet yourself. And when you finally meet yourself, really meet yourself, you learn to stop begging for acceptance from people who couldn't even accept their own truth. That's the quiet part of healing no one talks about. The part where you stop fighting for closure and start finding clarity. The part where you stop trying to make them regret losing you and start being grateful you found you. It's a shift, man. It's when the noise inside your heart settles and you look in the mirror and realize, I'm still here, I'm still standing, I still matter. You see, proving your worth drains you. It makes you think you have to perform to be loved. But healing, real healing, is knowing that your worth was never up for debate. You don't prove gold is valuable, it just is. You don't explain light. It just shines, that's you now. You've been refined by the fire, but you're still glowing. And when you reach that place, the power shifts. You don't chase closure, you become it. You don't demand apologies, you outgrow the need for them. You don't try to show them what they lost. You show yourself what you gained. Because healing without proving your worth means walking in silence, knowing that peace is the loudest proof you'll ever need. It's in the way you carry yourself, the calm in your voice, the softness that survived the storm. That's proof enough. They'll see it. Oh, they'll feel it. Because nothing unsettles the ones who hurt you more than watching you heal without bitterness, grow without validation, and smile without needing them to see it. And that's the lesson: you don't heal to be seen, you heal to be free. Free from the need to explain, free from the urge to prove, free from the weight of trying to be enough for people who couldn't even recognize your value when you gave them your all. Healing is the moment you stop saying, "Look what you did to me," and start saying, "Look what I became in spite of you." That's strength, that's power, that's peace that doesn't need permission. Because the truth is, you were worthy before they noticed you, and you'll still be worthy long after they forget your name. And when you can say that with a calm heart, you've already won, there comes a moment when you stop surviving and you start reclaiming your peace, reclaiming your power, reclaiming your purpose. See, life has a way of trying to make you forget who you are. Pain will whisper that you're not enough. Loss will try to convince you that you'll never recover. But there's something inside you, something no one can take, no matter how deep they cut, that keeps whispering, "Get up." That's the voice of your purpose. That's the quiet roar inside your spirit that says, "You've been through the fire, but the fire didn't win." Because peace isn't found in the absence of struggle. Peace is when you learn how to stay calm inside the storm. It's not when the noise outside stops, it's when the noise inside you begins to obey your strength. That's peace, that's power, and power ain't about control. It's not about proving or dominating or showing off. Power is restraint. It's knowing you could destroy someone with truth and choosing not to. It's knowing you could go back, but you keep walking forward. It's knowing you could break down, but instead you breathe, straighten your shoulders, and keep moving. You see, that's real strength. Not the kind that's loud, the kind that's steady. The kind that prays in private and smiles in public. The kind that turns pain into patience and disappointment into direction. And that's where your purpose starts to come alive again. Not when you get revenge, not when you get recognition, but when you get clarity. When you realize the pain didn't come to destroy you, it came to wake you up. To strip away everything that wasn't meant for your next chapter. To make room for the version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't settle. Because reclaiming your purpose isn't about going back to who you were before the hurt. It's about becoming who you were meant to be because of it. It's when you stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "What is this trying to teach me?" That's growth. That's grace. That's purpose being reborn. And when you reclaim your peace, you move different. You don't compete, you elevate. You don't explain, you align. You don't fight for a seat at the table, you build your own table, and you invite peace to sit with you. Because now you understand something powerful. The same silence they thought broke you actually rebuilt you. The same people who doubted you actually drove you back to yourself. And the same pain that made you question your worth actually revealed your purpose. That's the full circle of strength. That's the comeback no one sees coming. When you can walk through the same fire that tried to burn you, and now you're the one carrying light. Peace, power, purpose, they're not things you find, they're things you remember. They've been inside you this whole time, waiting for you to stop chasing noise and start trusting stillness. So when you stand there quiet, calm, unshaken, understand this. You're not the same person you were when you went silent. You're wiser now. You're stronger now, you're grounded now, and this silence, this peace, this purpose, it's not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your rise, because the same silence they mistook for weakness was the sound of your power being reborn. There's a moment, right after the storm, when everything goes quiet, not just outside you, inside you. That's when you realize the silence that once felt like punishment has become your peace. You see, when you go silent long enough, the world forgets your sound, but it never forgets your presence. And one day, That presence walks back in, not loud, not desperate, but steady, calm, and unshakable. That's when they start to notice something's different about you. The same eyes that once looked for weakness now see strength. The same hearts that took you for granted now wonder how you learned to glow without their validation. You didn't come back to prove a point, you came back to be the point. See, the return of the unspoken you. It's not about showing the world you're healed. It's about showing yourself that you don't need noise to be powerful anymore. You've learned how to move in silence, how to breathe with purpose, how to let your energy do the talking. That's when the world starts listening, because now you're not speaking from pain, you're speaking from peace, and peace. Peace has a voice that cuts deeper than anger ever could. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It just is. It says, I'm here. I survived, and I'm done explaining my worth. You see, when you've been silent for too long, people think they've forgotten you. But what they don't realize is silence doesn't erase. It refines, it shapes you in the shadows so that when you step back into the light, you're unrecognizable, not because you changed who you are, but because you became who you were meant to be all along. And that version of you, the one that doesn't need validation, doesn't seek revenge, doesn't chase approval, that version walks different, talks different, lives different. Now, when you walk into a room, you don't have to announce your return. Your presence says everything. That silence they once mocked has become your armor. That distance they thought was weakness has become your foundation. And now, they see it, they feel it, they know it. You're not the same soul they left behind in the noise. Because silence didn't just heal you, it rebuilt you. It taught you how to sit with your pain until it turned into purpose. It taught you how to breathe through chaos until peace became your natural state. It taught you that power isn't in proving them wrong, it's in knowing you were right to choose yourself. And that's the return of the one who no longer fights for attention, the one who doesn't seek closure because peace is closure. The one who doesn't need to be understood because truth doesn't beg to be believed. You're not back for applause. You're not back for validation. You're back because destiny said, now. Now is the time to rise. Now is the time to walk in what you were built for. Now is the time to let your silence speak volumes, not out of revenge, but out of revelation. Because the unspoken you, the healed, whole, grounded you doesn't need to shout anymore. Your peace is the loudest thing in the room. Your growth, your stillness, your composure, it's thunder disguised as calm. And when they see that, when they feel that, they'll finally understand. That silence wasn't your retreat, it was your resurrection, and you didn't come back to make noise, you came back to make history. So now, when they ask, why did you go silent? You just smile, because they'll never understand what silence taught you. It taught you how to breathe when your soul was drowning. It taught you that you don't have to shout to be heard. It taught you that peace isn't something you find, it's something you create. And maybe he thinks you've moved on. Maybe he tells himself you've forgotten, that your silence means indifference. But the truth is, you didn't move when you elevated, you rose above the noise. You stopped waiting for closure from someone who was never capable of giving it. You stopped seeking love in places that only gave you lessons, and you learned that sometimes the most powerful comeback is no comeback at all, because silence doesn't mean it's over. Silence means you're finally at peace with the outcome. It means you've stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It means you've learned that not everyone deserves access to your energy, and not every battle deserves your presence. You don't chase anymore, you don't beg anymore, you don't break anymore. You build, you breathe, you become, and that's the real victory, not revenge, not validation, just peace. Because one day, and it always happens, they'll look for you in the same place they left you. And you won't be there, you'll be somewhere higher, somewhere healed, somewhere holy, not loud, not bitter, just calm, just grounded, just free. So no, you weren't silent because you gave up. You were silent because you grew up. Because peace became louder than pain. Because you learned that sometimes silence isn't the absence of power, it's the evolution of it. And that's where your story begins again, not in the noise, not in the chaos, but in the quiet where strength whispers and destiny finally speaks.